Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to our event today, Actualizing Tendency, Organismic Wisdom and Understanding the World, with Salvador Moreno Lopez. Salvador, a warm welcome to Online Events.
Thank you, John. I'm really excited being here.
Well, I'm really excited to have you too, Sandra, and I'm really pleased that you're willing to do this hour with us. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And a warm welcome to the colleagues who are joining us live as well. If you've got some comments or questions to add to the discussion, we'd love to hear them. And Sandra and I are keeping our eye on the chat room and the Facebook comments. And also, if you're watching this recording in the weeks, months, years to come, it's lovely to have you here with us too. So yeah, I'm sure you're going to enjoy this hour together. And I can see Ian is with us from Wicklow in Ireland, so that's nice. If anybody else wants to let us know where they are, that would be really nice too. And Salvador, maybe you could give us a sense of where you are and the kind of things that are keeping you busy. Would that be okay?
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, I am in Guadalajara, in Mexico. It's the West Mexico. I'm retired from the university after many years of working there. And now I have my job as a psychotherapist, and I do some workshops, some lectures, and I like writing. So this is one activity that I have enjoyed now very much because I have more time to write to my own rhythm without rushing, and I like that very much. So the topic of today is a concern of mine for many years. So for me, this is like an opportunity to share with friends and colleagues these ideas, this interest, looking for some other people who may be interested in maintaining a dialogue and a search, trying to clarify and to propose new answers to these issues and questions.
Yeah. Well, I'm really pleased that you're willing to come and have some of that dialogue with us at Online Events, and we can have it together as a community. Yeah.
Yes.
And I guess it must feel like a luxury to write without rushing. I mean, university life is a very busy life, and to not have that. Yes. That sounds good. And I can see, you've got, there must be some colleagues, Javier and Roberto are also in from Guadalajara in Mexico.
Yeah, they are some friends and colleagues. Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you to the guys joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Maggie's in from Scotland, and Bianca from Romania, and Donna from Suffolk. Oh, lovely. That's nice. So UK and Europe and South America, very nice. Yeah. Of course, this hour is part of a project that we're just beginning to do. Robert, you contribute. I don't know why I'm calling you Robert. Sorry, Salvador. Salvador, you've written a chapter in Mano's new book, Revisioning the Person-Centered Approach. And we're hoping to have conversations with as many of the authors as possible. And that book is really about, I guess, pushing at the edges of the person-centered approach, and seeing what else we need to be thinking about to stay alive and to be energized. This approach.
Yeah, I think that, as Roger says, we need to be keeping fresh the theory, reflecting in the work that we do, in the clinical work and also in research. We have to remember that theory is not forever. It has to be moving and changing according to the new situations, new issues, new perspectives.
Yeah. well, as the world changes, we need to adapt, and the theory needs to evolve, and yeah, it's really important. And the theory also needs critique too, like to feel like we cannot critique a theory or question whether it's still valid or what needs to be different. It's the theory loses something if we're not engaged in that process.
Yeah. See, when I was teaching at university at graduate level, many times I was surprised because students and some other colleagues seem to think that theory is the main concern. So in the field of psychotherapy, one of the main questions was, from which theory do you work? From which perspective are you working with? And I used to say, I don't think that theory is the thing. I think that we need to see people and the situation where they are living, the problems that they have, and then we go to theories to look for what can help us to understand these people and to be able to create a situation, an interaction that might be helpful for them. So that means that maybe I might have to use several perspectives. And I have to learn how to use several perspectives, because there is a big discussion about that also.
Yes, yeah. I think that's very interesting. And I think often when we're learning, we get very, very focused on one particular way of thinking about psychotherapy. Maybe we've trained in the person-centered approach, and that becomes our approach to the client. But I guess you're saying that we need to get to know the client. What does the client need? And yeah. And I've just been reading your chapter again before we've come online. Particularly what you're thinking about in that chapter is the context, the circumstances that the client lives in is having a big impact on the client, not just how that client's personality is constructed, but how they like the environment that they live in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The perspective that invite us to see us as interaction in the world helped me to see this in a clearer way. Because in this way, I cannot forget that I am always interacting with other people in a very specific world, which means some political, economic, ecological, religious conditions. And all of that is present in my way of being. I mean, personality is not an individual internal characteristic. I think it has to do with what I learned through interacting with other people and with the world. So I need to understand, to look at those facets of the situation, to understand better what people is living, struggling, trying to change.
Yeah. So seeing that wider context.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because the person-centered theory, I guess, has grown out of a real focus on the person.
Yeah.
And the ideas around the actualizing tendency are about what comes, like what drives the person from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess you're saying we also need to be thinking about more than that when we're thinking about the actualizing tendency.
Well, I think it's interesting that, for example, Rogers, he liked a lot see things from agricultural and biology perspective. In one of his most commonly examples, when the sprout potato grows hardly because of the bad conditions, he emphasized that the tendency to grow. But even if he is aware that they are in bad conditions to grow better, he doesn't reflect upon the conditions. It's like, okay, it grew in some way, but it will be better if the conditions were better conditions.
Mm.
So we don't have to look at only the growth tendency that seems to be inside, but that growth tendency needs some environmental conditions to grow. So it's not independent from those environmental conditions.
Yeah.
If we take that to the human being, the baby needs to be well fed. He or she need good nutrition in order to have a good development, not only in a physiological psychomotor way, but also in a psychological intellectual way. So we cannot ignore, for example, if a baby is well or bad fed, if he has enough to food, a good food to grow well.
Yeah.
And that's only that issue, but also is how is his or her mother, how emotionally, how is she? Is calm, is relaxed, she feels well to care for the child, or she is stressed, depressed, with anxiety. And that has to do also with the family situation. Maybe the family situation is that they don't have enough money to get the food every day. So, but everything is connected.
Yeah. Well, and so in your chapter, you're saying that actualizing tendency then is not just innate, but it's also interactional. And yeah.
Right. That's what I thought. Well, maybe we can talk about two facets of the actualizing tendency. One that I call directional, the energy to grow, to look for being better, but also the interactional facet. That means how the interaction can support that actualizing tendency, or may hinder, be like a wall that makes the actualizing tendency difficult to grow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, those very early months and years, well, it can be easy to think that the person, I guess, in the countries like the US and the UK, where there's a lot of affluence, that the person can be independent, but it's easy to miss in those few weeks, months, and years of early life. It makes a huge difference to development and environments that exist in all countries in the world where there's a deficit. There isn't enough food. There isn't enough attention. It has a huge, huge impact. Yeah.
And there are millions of people living in those conditions.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's not like in the US, they say like the minority groups, where I'm not talking about minority groups in the sense that they are a few people. No, they are millions of people who live in these very desperate situations.
Yeah. And their tendency to actualize is very impacted by the desperate situation that they live in.
And of course, they try to do the best they can.
Yeah.
But then I am afraid that if we ignore the environmental conditions, say, well, they do the best they can, they will survive. It's okay, but in which condition they are surviving?
Yeah.
I think that it's important to look at how to change also those bad conditions so the people can live better. It's not surviving in any way, but they can feel better.
So it's part of your challenge for us, Salvador, for us to think about our work outside of the counselling room too, that we're contributing to social change.
I think I understood your question that we have to get out of the psychotherapy room.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I have to be aware of the situations that people live outside the psychotherapy room.
Yeah.
If, for example, a woman comes because she is beaten by her husband and she doesn't know how to do, or she's afraid of leaving him, I need to know the situation, these economic, political, cultural situations, because sometimes it seems to be easy to say that woman, just leave it, go away, go other place.
Yeah.
But sometimes that decisions may be worse because the husband is going from her, and then he will beat her worse, and her family does not support her because some families say you have to be with your husband because you marry him, and I don't care if he beats you. You are the woman and you have to obey. So we need to understand that dynamic to find ways and to help that woman to find her own way to solve the situation. Maybe like, for example, looking some legal advice, getting in touch with support groups that can help her to confront the situation, where she can find some shelter, where to live at least for a few months. Many different issues around the situation.
Yeah. So it could be, so as knowing the environment, that's the context that she's living in, and the resources that could be available to her that she might or may not know about. Perhaps a safe house, a shelter, organizations that might support women and their children in that kind of environment.
So if for example, if I know some legal aspect of that situation, if I'm in contact with some organizations, that might be helpful. I'm not going to solve the problem to that person, but I might give her more information, some contacts, and help her to make her own decisions, but with more elements, with more resources.
Yeah. Well, and this is one of the examples that you give in your chapter around a client who's in this kind of circumstance. And I think you say something really powerful around it, that when the whole world thinks you're wrong, like in that, I guess for a woman in that position, her family, her husband, all think she should stay. Like we need more than just ourselves to get a different view of what's possible. It's so easy then to internalize, well, I'm wrong. If everybody else thinks something else, there must be something wrong with me.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have to change that. I mean, people need to find a support group. So people might feel that they are not alone. And I think that is something similar for us as psychotherapists.
Okay.
Because sometimes when I work in this way, sometimes I think, am I doing right? Is it okay? I'm supposed to look for this information, for these resources for the person. It's not supposed that I have to wait so the person finds by herself her own decisions and solutions. So for that reason, I think that the opportunity to share, to talk, and to reflect with other colleagues, I think it's also important. At least for me, I think it's very necessary and important.
Yeah, well, I think that's the question that I'm sure colleagues who are with us live or who are watching the recording will have, especially those of us who've had their initial training in the person-centered approach, and maybe there's a real emphasis in not directing the client shall we say.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And I think it's a really important challenge to us to think, well, are there times in our practice when it's really important to offer a client some more resources in terms of information and possibilities? I wonder if any colleagues who are with us might want to make a comment about that. Like, is this a tension you feel in your practice? Or does it feel, yes, I absolutely do it, or no way, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And maybe as colleagues are thinking about that, and there's no obligation for anybody who's listening to type into the chat, even though we'd love to, Salvador and I would love to hear from you. Yeah. Well, we've already got a colleague who's typed something, so thank you for that. Let me read it out. So something that's coming up for me is that in all of us trying to find a way to help someone to get away, sometimes the question is, how do we help someone to stay when that is the only option? Oh, okay. So someone may have to stay in a very difficult environment for the time being. Yeah. Yeah. Very hard to do that, and to, I guess, resource someone, help someone find resources to stay. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that each situation is particular, so it's kind of difficult to say something for all the situation. But just thinking about that situation, for example, it might be the case that a person might find some ways to talk with the other person in a way that may create a different interaction. I was thinking in a person that I am attending, and she complains because she says that her mother is very aggressive with her. And I asked her, and when she said that, how do you feel? So she told me. And then what did you say? How do you say that? And I say, well, it seems like they are ready to fight.
Yes.
And you ask, if would be a different way that you could answer to your mother when she says that?
Yeah.
When you think about it, how could it be? So she seems to be a little bit surprised for my question. And then I said, well, I might say this, or I might say nothing. What would happen if you try to do that and see what happened? And in these sessions, she came and said, I'm surprised. Something happened. We didn't fight in the same way that we do usually. So I said, well, maybe you have something that you can do different that helps to construct a different interaction with your mother. I'm aware that this is not a very, very difficult situation, but give me a tip of what I could maybe do when in a situation where a woman is beaten by her husband, that usually are much more complex and difficult. But maybe this is the direction where I could look for some alternatives.
Yeah. Well, because often, unless the risk, sometimes the risk is extremely high. Often it can take time for movement. Even if someone can leave the home, it can take some time for that movement to happen, and how the survival might be possible in the meantime. Yeah. Oh, well, I can see some other comments coming in. So thank you for the colleagues who are typing away. That's very generous. There's a colleague saying, I agree, and I think there is a distinction to be made between non-directivity and supporting or enabling a client's direction.
Yes, I agree with that.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, maybe it's a very thin line, a thin border between one of them, but I think that it's important, and I find helpful that way to say it.
Mm. So, like, non-directivity might be a stance of not choosing the client's direction. The client chooses the direction, but there might be things that we do direct to support that movement.
Yeah. But I see that maybe that the notion of the client chooses his or her own direction maybe refers to the idea that we are free in a way that we are not conditioned in any way by anything else, not biological, culturally, economically, politically. And I don't think that we are free in that sense. We always have a kind of limited freedom. And we have to find those freedom spaces to make our own choices. But that freedom is always conditioned. Maybe it's always changing. Maybe it's more, less, and we have to be keeping looking for that space, that possibilities where we can really choose. But there are always some limitations.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a bit where colleagues have really got to well, I think they've got. I would encourage everyone to read your whole chapter, of course, but I really appreciated your critique of freedom in the chapter, Salvador. Like, and I know that's a tough space for me to get my head into. I want to believe I'm free and I've got agency and I can choose. But actually, like you're really critiquing within the capitalist environment, we're being put to work for the objectives often of other people who have far much more power than we have.
A few days ago, I was talking with a friend, and then she told me about the freedom, and she said, well, you can go to the supermarket and you can buy whatever you want. Yes, I can go to the supermarket. I see that there are like 15 brands of milk. None of them is real milk. What is my freedom?
Yeah.
I want real milk, but there is no real milk. There's only those brands.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's maybe a naive example, but helps me to understand that there is an illusion that since we have many things to buy, for example, that we are free.
Yeah. Yes.
For the beginning, first I have to have enough money to buy. If I don't have enough money, which freedom do I have?
Yeah, like choice is not necessarily freedom.
Right.
And we have to have access to that choice also. And as you're saying in your chapter, in economies where wages are low and there is high unemployment, we could find ourselves really held in a place that is not of our own choosing. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's also like we might have managed to get a little bit extra freedom for ourselves as psychotherapists, perhaps. And we might assume that that's possible for our clients, but that might not be realistic for them.
Yeah. One thing, for example, if I leave from my work as a psychotherapist, and all of a sudden I don't have too many persons going to psychotherapy, and I have a less income, does it make any difference in the way that I feel working with people?
Yeah.
Or not? Or it's just the same? I think that I, as a psychotherapist, also I am influenced by all these conditions, my own personal living conditions.
Yeah. Like if we feel we have plenty of work, we have enough financial resources to make some more choices, that's going to feel very different to if we're really struggling and finding things difficult. And even if things seem to be going well for us in our living conditions, are we still able to really acknowledge the living conditions of our clients? A real challenge.
One question around this is, for example, when some students ask, how much do I have to charge for a psychotherapy session?
Yeah.
Good questions. Maybe we have to do a research in the market.
Yes.
To have a percentage, how many psychotherapists charge this amount, and this amount. I have the results, but that don't solve my own question. How much do I have to charge? Charge for a psychotherapy question.
Yeah.
And then people comes, and it just happened that this person maybe can pay 50 pesos, I would say, and it's much money for that person. But maybe this other comes and she can pay 500 pesos, and it's quite well. It's no problem for her. So if I say, well, I will attend only people who can pay at least 500 pesos, okay, it's my own choice, it's my decision. But that's insert in a very specific social situation.
Yeah.
And I think I can ignore that I'm doing that choice, that selection, to work only with people who can pay more than. I'm not saying that this is better or this is better now, but I think this is, we need to see that this is happening and think about it and find ways to give some answers to these issues.
Yeah. Like to really acknowledge what we choose as therapists. To really, feels important. Well, there's some more comments coming in from colleagues, just to pick up here. Colleagues saying, I think it's important when we're talking about domestic violence to know that there's also men who are being abused too. So balancing that up, we might be working with a male client who's found themselves in a really harsh living environment that they need to exit. So thank you to the colleague for also saying that.
Let me just comment a little bit about that, because just recently a student of mine finished a master's thesis about this topic, and we found out very interesting results. Like the men don't have too many places where to go for help. For example, these men went to some government agencies, and there they told them that they didn't attend men, only women. There are no services for men, only for women. And when men complain in their families or with their friends, they don't believe, and they say, you are not enough enough men, like you are bad. In a machista society, that can be understood that men could be beaten or by a woman. So his condition is very, very painful.
Well, it feels like very important research. A lot of societies are macho societies and don't recognize the abuse that men can experience in the home. Another colleague making a comment here. So thank you for letting us know about that research, Salvador. That feels really important. Thank you. Another colleague saying, there are times when the therapy turns into crisis counselling, and then it feels wrong not to offer guidance regarding the environment the client is in. I guess saying clients can get really desperate, and maybe in those moments we don't have our full capacity to think because we're so desperate. And
yeah. A few years ago, thinking about this question of non-directivity, letting the person grow by himself, all those ideas. Once I was at home, and one of my nephews asked me to go with him. He was around 5 years old, to a room that was a dark room. And I say, no, you can go by yourself. There is nothing to be afraid of. And the child just looked at me, kind of didn't like what I said. So he went away to another place. Later, he asked me the same question. And I thought, well, what happened if I took his hand, I go with him to the room, accompany him, turn on the light, and see what happened. So I did that. I went with him. When he was in the room, he looked at me and said, you may go now. I said, okay, thank you. So from there, I said, well, maybe in psychotherapy, there are some situations when you have to give your hand to the person, because the person is in a situation where he or she needs your hand, to hold your hand. Otherwise, she might drown, get desperate, even die thinking about suicide, for example. The thing is that I'm giving my hand only meanwhile he or she recovers his own energy, his own confidence to take care of him or herself in a different way.
Yeah. I love that example, Salvador. I really love that example. Because, I mean, that resonates something for me. Like, for me, the question is not about when do we take the hand or not. It's about when do we let go. That's something I think a lot about as a therapist. And yeah, because I know I need that in my life sometimes. I need someone to take me by the hand and just hold on to me for a little while. But if the person doesn't ever let go, then that's also a problem. Yes. they need to keep hold of me, but no, that's not helpful either. Like your nephew said, okay, go away now, go away. Like, I'm fine. And
so that helped me to learn that he knew the help that he needed from me. Just to accompany him to go to a hall and into the room and to turn on the light. Then I'm okay, you can go.
Yeah. Well, and in the chapter, you're really challenging the notion, Salvador, of that we have, there can be this idea in the person-centered approach that we have everything within us that we need.
Yeah.
And I guess you're writing about, well, no, a lot of what we need is in our environment, in relationship, in the exchange with the environment when it comes to money and work. So we need to be paying attention to that too, and thinking about what the client doesn't have within them.
Yeah. See, there is something interesting in Roger's work. When he talks about psychotherapy, he said that the person has within him or herself the enough resources to understand himself or herself. When he talks about education, he says that the conditions are not only the attitudes, but one of the conditions that he talks about in education is that the facilitators may provide resources to the students to learn. In education, it's more clear for him that the person is living in a world. So the person needs resources to understand the world, to solve problems in the world. So the facilitator, the teacher or the professor may facilitate resources. And he even said that he spent a lot of time arranging and looking for resources for the students.
Yeah.
So when I see these two things here, well, maybe just have to remember us that the person in psychotherapy is also living in a world. And the issue is not only the self-understanding, but it also have to live in a world with other people in specific circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting in thinking about Roger's work around education. That like there's things that we won't learn unless someone teaches us them or like offers up some information. There's things that are not, when it comes to physics and geometry and chemistry, and many things, there's wisdom to receive, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we often need.
Yeah. And he emphasized also the importance of meaningful learning in education. It's not rooted learning, not memory learning. It's significant, meaningful learning, which means that I feel in a body way, in an affective way, and in a cognitive way what I am learning.
Yeah. So it's not just gathering the knowledge, but like how we integrate that, how we ingest it into ourselves, the meaning that we make. Yes. And so maybe in psychotherapy, I guess there's something about, does this person have the things around them that they need in order to begin to grow and for that actualizing tendency to do its work, and we might be helpful in supplying some of those resources or helping a client find some of those resources.
And then I give some resources, but I have to wait how the person receives them, how she or he values those resources, the meaning that those resources have for him and for her, and how decides or can use them or not. I'm open to that alternative also. Maybe she or he say, I don't need that, I don't want that, I don't agree with this. So it's okay.
Yeah. And I think that is the moment, I think, where the non-directivity is really important, that I'm not attached to my offering to the client. So I can make the offer, but if the client refuses it, it's okay. Like that. Yeah. Well, I'm thinking particularly about the man you write about in the chapter who has to spend most of what he earns making things and traveling into the city to sell the things. And I just noticed a little sentence about you'd have a conversation with him about how he might find some supplies that are not so expensive.
Yes.
Like just that little conversation, that you might know something or you might hear something in his description that can just make all the difference in his accounting, if you like, and create some more resources and freedom.
This man lives in a very small village. He works making some handcrafts. He get an income of maybe, I don't know, but maybe 500 pesos a month. And he was buying some pills for his anxiety that cost him around 300 pesos.
Wow.
Okay. So I said that it's not possible. This man can live with 200 pesos, he and his family. So the first thing was ask him, where do you buy those pills? And then I realized that they have to go to a city, so I have to pay for a bus to go. So I try to think, wait, what alternatives could he have to get the pills in a lower cost, which was a way to help him to get in a better conditions. But then I suggest, would you like to learn some activities that might help you to be more relaxed and calm, and they don't cost you anything? And maybe later you won't have to take your pills.
Yeah.
And I say, yes, I would like to try that.
Yeah.
So we start learning how to pay attention to his own breathing. And he was surprised because, oh, I feel relaxed. Oh, I feel more calm. Well, you may practice this every day. And maybe you won't need to take those pills. So for me, I say, these men have more money available for his expenses because he don't have to buy those pills. And also, he is more relaxed.
Yeah.
He has a resource to deal with his own stress. But I don't think that he could discover by himself these alternatives if I don't talk to him about them.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and for me, that is the key thing, or one of the key things in this conversation, that if there's something I can't discover on myself, I want you to tell me. Like, I need someone else to help me know that. And that being our role as therapists, to offer that to the person who doesn't know is, yeah. And theoretically, I guess what you're saying, Salvador, is like, this is the actualizing tendency in action, the interactive nature of that actualizing tendency. As he comes together with you,
yes,
and you share that knowledge that you have, and that then that builds his energy for growth.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I feel very excited by this conversation, Salvador. It feels very important to me. Very important. It's something it's also been on my mind as a therapist and a trainer, like where those moments where we do say what we know and we do offer something from our own experience to that the client is not going to find by themselves.
Yeah. At the beginning, I felt a little bit guilty, I should say.
Okay. What is your guilt, Salvador? What is that?
I thought, I'm doing what I'm not supposed to do. You don't have to give any advice. Well, I'm not giving that. I'm just presenting alternatives. I'm presenting information. I'm presenting some questions that might help the people to think about in a different direction that they are not looking at. But I think I don't want to impose, and I hope I don't do that.
Yes.
I'm just doing a very, I say in Spanish a word, pretexto. I don't know if in English is pretext. Like something you do, like an opportunity for people can say something.
Yes.
If she wants.
Yeah. Well, and that feels like a really important part to this discussion. It's well, for me, Rogers was really making a difference in an environment where health professionals would insist on what the client would do, would decide for the client. And for me, what you're describing, Salvador, it's something you put on the table the client can take or not take. Yeah,
you're right.
For that man that you work with, if the exercise didn't work for him, it would be okay with you. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, and I think working at that age where we're breaking some of the rules is also exciting, I think. Yes. Well, you can probably see my eyes wandering over to the chat room, Salvador. So there's some
Yeah,
things that colleagues are typing in, and I notice a colleague saying, "Oh, something is going on in me about an interactive actualizing tendency," with 3 smiley faces. So I'm just curious what it is happening in that colleague. So if you'd like to type some more about that, we'd love to hear it. And you don't have to. We're not, Salvador and I are not insisting on that. So, yes. Another comment here, maybe this is my personal experience and needs. To me, there is a danger that in seeing the actualizing tendency and non-directivity, that we expect the client to do it by themselves, that we can end up by leaving the client alone when this is what they're already living outside of the counselling room and the relationship. I think that's something that really resonates for me in my work too, that often clients do feel on their own, and we could recreate that in our non-directivity. How about you, Salvador?
There is another cultural facet about this also. Once a client came to a session and told me, "I'm very glad today because some members of my family told me that they see me better. I don't fight. I feel in a better mood. They can talk to me more easily. I feel better too. I'm sleeping well, etc." I don't know why, because I just come here and you don't say anything. So, but I feel better.
Yeah.
And I start thinking, why did she say that I don't say anything? And one hypothesis that I thought was, because what I say is not what culturally is expected to say if you want to help somebody. In our cultural situation, trying to help somebody means to give advice, to say if she is doing right or wrong, no, to give information, to reprehend if you think that she's doing wrong. And since I wasn't doing any of these behaviors, I wasn't doing anything. I just even didn't say nothing. Reflections was for her like nothing. Even, but she was surprised because she could feel changes. She could notice that she was feeling behaving in a different way, but she didn't connect with that. So one thing that I learned from that is that maybe sometimes it is okay to say also something in the ways that people expect you to help them. For example, a person in the first session say, "Well, could you tell me then what is your diagnosis? What do I have?" Like in a medical model. And I asked myself, well, how can I answer this question without putting her mark like depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, whatever. And one way to solve this was, like, for example, I did a very short description of the main symptoms that she described. Well, it seems that you are feeling this and this and this and this way in her own words. And with all of this, you are having a very bad time, you are suffering, and certainly you really want to find a way to get rid of them and feel better. And for many people, that was enough. That was enough. I mean, they felt that I, as a doctor, has given her a response to her question, and that makes me more comfortable for that one.
Yeah.
And if I don't do that, maybe the person she will not come the next time.
Yeah.
Because I didn't give her an answer that made some meaning to her.
Yeah. That makes so much sense to me, Salvador. And for me, what you're describing is a deeply empathic response to the client. Like, what does the client need in that moment to feel safe and to be able to trust that they will get what they need?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And in a way, then you're talking in a language that the client understands, in that this is how a doctor or a health professional would talk. It doesn't mean that then I guess you're going to do all the things that another health professional would do, but there's some language that helps the client feel safe in there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's also acknowledgement of the context that we sit in, the cultural context, the power that we have as therapists, and what people usually experience when they go for help. Yeah. Yeah. I really like the way you're talking about that, to say something in the client's words, but that catches their experience. Yeah.
In another time, a woman to 23 years that was looking in psychotherapy, she had a very specific situation. All of the sudden, she felt the need to take off all his robe, his blouse and dress, and just to be naked. And she started running by the street naked.
Okay.
So after 10 sessions, once she came in and she asked me, my mother wants to take me with a woman, with a lady, but I want to know if you agree with that. When she asked me that question, I thought, I think she's talking about a shaman or something, like a witch or a curandera or something like that.
Okay.
So I asked her, and she just flushed and yes. Yeah, you wanna go? Yes, I agree with whatever you want. If you want to go, that's okay. Would you keep coming here? Yes, of course, I will keep coming here. Well, maybe then later we can talk about what is going on there. Oh, yes, of course. But in the next sessions, she told me about the advices that this woman had given to her. For example, that she got 7 cats and she fed the cats from their own food, and she needed to sleep with the 7 cats in her bathroom. And I thought maybe I wouldn't do any of these actions myself.
Okay.
But she seems to be very sure, as accepting very well all those behaviors. I'm okay with that if she wants to do it.
Yeah.
Well, her problem solved. She was okay. And after 2 years that we have finished the sessions, once she came to my office with his baby, and I wanted to come to see, so you can see my baby. I'm married, I have a baby, I have been okay. I'm grateful with you. And I was really, really surprised at that.
Wow. Yeah.
And some colleagues has asked me, what did you think that helped her to be okay? What you did or the situation with other women? Yeah, maybe we work together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe both, in a way, collaborate so that person could change that problem that she has, solve that problem, and feel better.
Yeah.
I don't know. I am guessing.
Yeah. Like, it's impossible to say. But I guess if you had got in a drama about, oh, it's me or it's the shaman, or like you've got to choose, that could have been really unhelpful for the client. Yeah. But you being open and willing to still work with things that would seem strange, I guess. But yeah. Wow, and what a result for her to be in her life and to have her child. That's a fantastic result.
Yeah.
Oh, the time. Well, we're out of time, Salvador. The time is just went like that. This is such a fast hour. Thank you for this. The colleague who is saying that maybe they're getting another way to think about the actualizing tendency has been saying a little bit more. There's just the catch. It feels like we're engaging in a joint healing or a joint actualizing or life forward direction and healing, if that makes sense. What goes off in me is a new way of seeing person-centered theory, that it is joint actualizing that we're doing. What a lovely expression. Thank you to the colleague who, I love that idea that together with our clients, we're actualizing together.
That makes me a lot of sense and invites me to reflect more about it, because it points to another facet. I, as a psychotherapist, also change in the interaction with the person that I'm working with. It's not that only the other person changes. I am also affected, touched, and I also change. So this is also an opportunity for me to grow, or to be aware of maybe some personal situation that I haven't been very well solved, and I might need to attend.
Well, this is that's a lovely description of that interactional aspect of the actualizing tendency, and it feels like it's happening here as we're here together in the group. That for me, the colleague is describing, like how we're being changed by each other in this discussion.
So this joint actualizing tendency makes sense to me.
Could be a new development of the theory, a joint actualizing tendency. Fantastic. Oh, Salvador, I wish we had another hour. This would be easy to keep talking, but we have to finish. Thank you so much for contributing to the chapter to the book. I really enjoyed what you've written. Sandra's putting the resource guide into the chat room just now with links to the book. I would really encourage colleagues to read the chapter and the other chapters in the book. And thank you for taking the time to come and talk some more about it here. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I enjoy very much, John. Thank you. And thank you to all the friends and colleagues who have joined this conversation and for their comments. I hope to read them later. Thank you very much to everybody. Thank you to Sandra for her wonderful job also attending people.
Yes, thank you, Sandra, for looking after all of us as usual. And I want to add my thanks to yours, Salvador, to the colleagues who've been with us live and typing away. That's great. And if you've not been typing, you've been sitting listening, we really appreciate your attention. And as well, if you're watching this as a recording, thank you for the attention that you make it, or you've offered us. It does make a difference. Okay. Well, Salvador, it feels like we've got more conversations to have, and I hope there'll be other opportunities to do more of this. I really do.
Yeah. I hope so, John. But thank you very much.
Till the next time we can be together, we'll say goodbye for now. Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay. Bye.